The following is a King 5 Education in Action special presentation.
We don't need no education. We don't need no thought control.
This is the next generation. The education we give them today will chart the courses of their lives. But now, more and more students, parents, and teachers face learning challenges we never dreamed of. These are our children and our future. But do we really know them?
I felt like there was no way out. I didn't think about my future. I couldn't. It was too hard.
Now, how is learning about what George Washington Carver did to invent electricity going to go out and help you get a job, for instance, at a bank? You know, I mean, come on.
My community made a difference because they're there. There's something solid that I can count on.
Here's the way we might do it in most of our classrooms. We're just hello, is anybody home down there?
And I just turned 14 when I got locked up.
I don't know. Sometimes I look at the future and I can't see myself in it.
I mean, it's the whole rebellion thing, you know? What are you rebelling against? What do you got?
Hi, I'm Jean Anderson. This special is part of King 5's ongoing commitment to put education in action. Now is an important time for education in Washington. Our educational system is changing. It's on the brink of success or failure, and its success may lie with you and me, and how carefully we listen to those most affected by our education system. We're going to introduce you to some teenagers who are growing up in our schools and dealing with some difficult challenges every day. What we present here is a portrait of education through their eyes, but it's a portrait with a purpose, to show you how important each of us is to the success of their education. We hope their stories give you new insight into how you can make a difference. The average student has changed considerably over the years. Meet Kristen, or as she prefers to be known, Forrest. Her generation will lead us into the next century.
People who see me might think that I am messed up. They might think that I do drugs. They might think that I'm not very smart. They might think that I'm very apathetic and that I don't do anything except for sit around, smoke pot, and watch TV. And that can't be anything more farther from the truth.
Last year was her first year in high school. It was a little overwhelming for both of us. It's a big school, it's a new school. She didn't know anybody, didn't know the teachers, everything was just sort of settling. This year feels better.
Last year I didn't have anything together, and I was getting really bad grades, and I didn't have good friends.
It's always a struggle because they are fighting for their independence and wanting to have their privacy and run their own life, and you're wanting to be involved in their life. And sometimes I think you just have to be strict and say, I am going to be involved in your life, period.
I'm allowed to go and do stuff with my friends, but there's so many rules that I have to follow by, I don't enjoy myself.
I have this sort of vision of sort of carrying them through these really difficult years just to get them there so that they can look back and in retrospect sort of say, oh, I was, really kind of dumb. So there's a constant message that I'm sending to her about making good choices and not making choices that are irreparable.
I mean, it's the whole rebellion thing, What are you rebelling against? What do you got?
The maximum term is life imprisonment. The state is asking for the high end of the range.
I'm sorry. Whatever I could do, I'd do it. And I just turned 14 when I got locked up.
Meet James. He represents our deepest fears. He's a convicted murderer, and he's only 15. But 5 years ago, his biggest concerns were school and baseball.
6th grade, he started losing interest, and he was very involved with baseball. He was a good little pitcher.
And I was out for tryouts, and I got on the team. And I think I went to like 1 or 2 practices, and then I broke my arm and I couldn't play.
He had a cast on the rest of the summer, and he never went back.
I was pretty good at baseball. I could have still been doing that, but then I just kind of fell off track.
He got more interested in what was happening outside of school than what was happening in. It was boring.
Baseball would have, it would have helped me more because I would have been at practice, I would have been at games, and I would have felt good about myself.
He wasn't challenged by the schoolwork because it was too easy for him. I mean, he never did homework, but whenever he had a test, he got an A. So that's how he managed to get through school.
I just didn't really have no guidance. I just went around and did what I wanted to do. Sometimes it was nothing. Sometimes it was just sitting around outside, just thinking about what to do.
If you brought in 50 pounds of paper, you became a private, and 75 pounds of paper.
Paula has all of the advantages: successful parents, caring family, and private school. But for years, she also had a secret. She couldn't read well.
Spiraling pounds of paper leading upwards. It's embarrassing. I mean, reading in front of a class and messing up the words because you're not like everybody else and you don't know how to pronounce it, and big words that, seem big to little kids, or they seem big to me.
We had her eyes tested, we had her hearing tested, we did all the other things to see maybe there was a problem here, but we just couldn't put our finger on it. When she would do tests, she would score, for instance, in 5th grade, she scored at a 3rd grade reading level, but at almost 7th grade math level. But because they averaged out to a 5th grade level, she kind of slipped through the cracks, and this happened over and over again.
I could get by with it in my public school. I mean, the teachers really, didn't seem to care.
I believe in people, and I believe that if you give them something, that they'll take that chance.
It's harder than ever to be a youngster these days, and we should know that because it's harder than ever to be a parent. Even dedicated parents aren't always enough. Meet Jesse. He's an only child with 2 parents who gave him all of their love and attention, and they still lost him to the streets.
As a little kid, he was just a little kid. As he grew up, problems arose. School, of course, had always been a problem. He tended to be something of an underachiever.
Spoon-fed education, passive learning did not work for me.
He never really expressed clearly how he was feeling. He kept a lot of it inside.
I felt, whether or not this was an accurate perception, that if they found out about what I was doing, they just, they get really mad at me, and then, I just get punished. So, I never told them, and I hid everything, and I just got deeper and deeper, and I don't know how they would have reacted, but that was my perception, and I was afraid of taking that risk of finding out.
What if you went to a school that was known as the worst in town? How would you feel about the value of your education? Meet Bridget. She attends Lincoln High School, and she deals with those questions every day.
There's a lot of things that are unfair, but specifically the way the community views us.
It's just because I guess there's a lot of low-income kids go there, and people see the kids as all bad and everything. Lincoln is not a bad school.
There's a lot of violence that happens in this area. The truth of the matter is that we're not afraid to admit that the violence happens around the area. But what a lot of the newspapers have gotten around, and a lot of the rumors have, is that a lot of the stuff has happened at Lincoln, and that's not true. A lot of students here want to survive, and they want to go out there and work hard. Nobody has just given us the chance, though.
From the first day Letitia walked into the classroom, she has worn her differences for all to see.
A lot of people would ask me what happened to your eye, and
Just like all those other standard lines I had programmed into my little brain, I had a disease when I was a baby. I usually don't wear a patch over my eye. I usually wear an artificial eye. My eye was surgically removed when I was real young. And when I'm not wearing the patch, when I have the artificial eye, and it does look a little bit different. And kids used to look at that and call me all kinds of terrible names, glass eye woman, one-eyed monster. It was really bad when I was younger.
She has pain. She has a lot of physical pain some days, and a lot of probably emotional pain.
Yeah, I think it's probably almost a daily or weekly occurrence that she has an ugliness occur. But we don't hear much about it. We hear enough to get the idea that she's not hiding them all. But she doesn't complain about it too much. She's pretty matter of fact, and I can imagine how tiring it must be.
I didn't like being at school because I knew going to school meant getting picked on. And it shouldn't have meant that. It should not have meant getting picked on. It should have meant learning.
These stories may seem unique, but they're not isolated. They reflect struggles of students across the state. We'll show you how their lives touch us all when we return. For information that will help you make a difference in the lives of young people like these, call this number, 206-448-4552. For all our young people, education is a crossroads where we can win them or lose them. If we give up on any of them, we all suffer.
I was only 11 years old when I got kicked out.
He was kicked out of school for bringing a gun to school.
They just kicked me out without even saying nothing.
He's got to go to school, and they said, well, unfortunately, there aren't any schools. We don't have any alternative schools for children between the ages of 11 and 15. He said, well, you can try to get him in a private school, but that's up to you, and it probably won't be in the state of Washington.
I don't think they really ever gave me a chance. They just said I was expelled, and I was expelled, and that was it.
His expulsion was intended as punishment, but it became an opportunity for crime. Instead of keeping other students safe, it may have been the first step towards tragedy.
They told me I couldn't go to school. You know, that's like telling a kid you can't really succeed in life.
Is failure in school a life sentence?
As a law enforcement officer, I come in contact with that small percentage that we're losing contact with. Those are the ones that's going to impact society tremendously and going to cause the quality of each of our lives to decrease.
The rising trend toward kicking a kid out of school for a whole year when the gun comes into the school, which I'm not saying I'm against, and they're out in the neighborhood and there's nothing for them to do because they're out of school and they're home, the parents are gone to work, the kid gets bored, what's he gonna do? What's she gonna do?
If we don't take the time and expend the resources and the energy, not only money but time, to help our young people become well educated, to move through the system so they can graduate and get good paying jobs. If we don't do that, you might as well reach into your pocket and pay the government more money to build more jails and to put more policemen on the street, and you're still not going to feel safe.
I don't want to go out and arrest 15-year-olds for murder anymore. It's not fun.
But we're still kids. We still got feelings and stuff like that. We still want to make it. Don't condemn us. Don't condemn the kids.
If we have any doubts about the human cost of failing education, we need only look at our prisons for reminders.
Education is the most important thing to have because without it, you don't get very far. And I've had a lot of disappointments in my life, and most of them have been due to the fact that I don't have an education.
If I had a chance to change my life, I mean, if I could do it all over again, sure, I would never, ever would have dropped out of school. I've been in jail many, many times. Prison, now I'm in prison. Where am I going? What's next? Death? Death. That's what's next. And I don't want death.
Education is just the key. It's knowledge. It's everything. You know, it's very, very important.
It's really hard, you know, to be in the joint, to be locked down in a cell, and everybody have to tell you when you can go eat and when you have to go to bed. It's no good place for human being to be. And the only way you can avoid these places is keep going to school.
I can't really speak on education that much. I haven't had any of it. I know it's important. I know I missed a lot through my lack of education.
Pride in her school is something Bridget bears proudly, but it's difficult when even the school building gets little respect.
There's a lot of stuff that I know that should be changed. The building needs to be remodeled totally. You know, no one's talked about that. The building needs to be remodeled. All they're talking about is the kids, the ones who they see in the gangs or see ripping and running up and down the streets, gang banging and stuff like that. You know, we're here. We're the ones inside the school. Talk about us.
Here's supposed to be sinks right here. No sinks. This one doesn't even work.
We shouldn't have to deal with that. People are always talking about how sanitary we need to be when the sink doesn't even work in the bathroom, the only bathroom on that floor. No, it shouldn't be.
This is my physics class, third period. Here's a picture of the ceiling. I think this needs to be fixed immediately.
While we're sitting in class, teachers are trying to teach us, and there's tiles falling down. You tell me we could deal with that, you know, that's good enough? What, do you want to wait till the last one falls down? No.
It makes you wonder if all our schools are comfortable and safe.
So anyway, they came in, they fixed it. It was cosmetically appealing at that point. Looked just like the rest of the walls, and over the period of the last 5 years, then you have the same deterioration again.
Here's the way we might do it in most of our classrooms. Just check. Hello, is anybody home down there? Hi, we're just checking to see if the phone works. Oh, well, sometimes. All right.
This is a classroom where we teach German. And you can see not only the damage in terms of the ceiling, but you can see the seepage coming through the walls. There are areas in the building we can't go into at this point. You know, they're telling us we're in a safe, healthy environment. But at that point, when we are aware of the signs and the amount of asbestos that's in the linoleum, as an example.
We've always been concerned about that. We do have a storage problem. But another point of view is this might be an assemblage of material for some sort of museum, but it isn't. These are the actual pieces of equipment that we're able to use here at Roosevelt in physics.
And what about basic privacy? Schools and prisons are the only places where you don't find doors on the stalls in the bathroom. Even the handicap stalls in this Seattle school lack doors. Can you imagine a child in a wheelchair using these facilities? Would you use them? You might not think it important, but our children do. They leave school to find better bathrooms. The message here is not just money, it's respect. We have to ask ourselves if we value education as much as we insist our students value it.
Take a look at your data. How many people, the numbers for class...
When you're that age, you want to rebel against something, but you can't find anything or you don't understand enough yet. It's kind of like a whirlwind of like hormones and emotions and hypocrisy and rebellion and everything at once. Teenagehood is such a different world.
The kids don't think you know anything, and we know that we know a lot more than they know, but they don't want to hear it.
Not really a majority of the stuff that I do is for a reaction. It's just that I like to stand out a lot. I don't like being part of a group.
I've had fear of being too strict, that I was going to alienate her, push her away from me, she was going to take off. But what I found is that when I did lay down the law, when I did set the rules, she responded better than when I was ambiguous.
I'm a very responsible person with everything that I do because I know there'll be consequences. I hate that word. My parents always use that word.
And I think, although she wouldn't admit it, she likes the idea of me being involved in her school academic life as well as her social life.
I would really like my mother more as a friend than as a parent so that I could talk to her about like the stuff that goes on without having to worry that she's going to ground me or whatever. And I've talked to her about that before, and she said that I don't need another friend, I need a parent. So that won't work out.
Are we improving communication between generations?
A family should be a family, not someone dictate to someone else that this isn't a democracy.
It's completely different the way we live. It has to be. We grow up a lot faster as far as childhoods. I mean, the whole big thing that surrounds, drugs and sex and school.
I didn't do that when I was a kid, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that wasn't normal when you were a kid, but it is now.
I have a lot of troubles with my parents in that. I mean, I have to be careful when I'm talking on the phone and things like that. I never know when they'll be listening.
All kinds of stuff like that.
I don't think it's right. Like some of my friends have to lock their doors to their rooms.
We need to be able to trust our parents to be able to trust us.
Yeah.
If we could just talk to our parents and tell them how it is and what we did, what's going on in our life, it'd be so much easier.
We want to be able to tell them the truth. We want them to know what's going on in our lives. And we need them to make it easy for us to do that. It's hard to trust them, and it's hard for them to trust us. I understand that, but as the adults in the situation, I think that they really need to take the first step as far as the trusting goes, and it'll be easier then for us to follow and trust them.
It's so much more harder for me to make up what I miss than it is for somebody that's without a learning disability.
There's been other studies done, but they find another avenue that works for them, whether it's visual or music or whatever, something where they don't have to prove themselves by writing or speaking.
Feel how on that one you reached back with the set?
It comes easy for me to do sports. School comes easy to other people.
I think Paula has put a lot into her sports. I think she's wanted to be one of the best on the team because she knows she's not one of the best in her English class.
It's really hard when you don't have hope for your future. That builds and builds and builds, and that powerlessness eventually gets to the point where you're just hopeless.
By that time, he had put up a wall. We couldn't have gotten through to him.
It's just, you couldn't trust anybody, and nobody in my life I trusted. I was completely alone, and then I was taking LSD to sort of get into another reality, so I didn't have to deal with that one, and I was always paranoid, thinking people were going to kill me, and things like that, and people out there were just thinking I was nuts. I kind of was, I guess. Instead of making a real connection between people, it was 5 people in a circle, and here's the drugs, and everybody was connecting that way. And of course, you don't make real friends there. When you stop doing drugs like I stopped, all the friends are gone.
We may not realize it when we walk down the street, but this is where we cross paths with those students who drop out. Because when they drop out of school, this is where they go.
I don't know. I don't know where I got lost.
Knowing that certain people in the class were usually carrying knives to school. Some brought guns to school, hid them in their locker, which the principal at that particular high school, and as well as other schools, did not know about. And I felt like my life was in danger, so I ended up dropping out of school.
If you drop out of school, you're basically going to ruin your life. It might not seem that way at the time, but eventually it's gonna be really bad.
If you don't want to be on the streets, you got to have an education so you can have a job. And that is the most important thing. That is the basis to start your life.
As the struggle to get an education gets harder, the pressures of growing up can become overwhelming. When we return, our kids face their greatest challenges. Schools have lists of things they need. Call your school district, or for a free education and action brochure, call this number. We call it education. Our kids just call it growing up. Either way, it determines the courses of our lives. For Letitia, a lifetime of dealing with differences has only just begun.
I was probably in 9th or 10th grade when I finally figured out that I was okay, even though it was different. And I'm a senior now. I mean, that was just a couple of years ago. I don't feel entirely safe. Because I'm gay. Because I have medical problems. Because some people don't like me. It's not like I ran around yelling, "Hey, everybody, I'm a dyke." But, you know, things travel around a school. It took me a couple of years to figure it out, and actually talking to somebody about it was hard because I was really, really scared that people were going to think that there was something wrong with me. I think I confuse a lot of people when they find out that I'm gay because I don't look like a stereotypical lesbian. I didn't look not stereotypical on purpose. I'm just me. People all over the place communicate that being different is somehow wrong. And I wouldn't have been scared to come out if I hadn't, you know, already had that being different is wrong thing stuck in my head.
Bridget is becoming the victim of a powerful kind of prejudice, educational prejudice. She claims she's actually been turned down for jobs when employers found out where she went to high school.
But what I want mostly is to go to college. It's going to be hard for me to go to college because of financial situations. There's these college applications, and each one of them is like $45 to send in. I'm trying to get a job now so I can, you know, pay for these applications just to send them in.
Bridget may be surrounded by risk, but she's succeeded in becoming vice president of Lincoln's student body. And she has a challenge for anyone who labels her or her school.
A lot of students want to go far. They want to go to college. They want to get a nice job, have a nice family, have that car. But they can't do it because people don't give us the opportunity. They say, "Oh, you're from Lincoln, oh. You know, if you don't give us the chance to show ourselves right, then how do you expect us to live? It's not as if we're asking a lot. We just want to do what everyone else is doing, but without the reputation of being a loser."
School has become the battleground for independence in Forrest's life. Her mother's very involved in school, and Forrest doesn't like it.
With school especially, I want her to stay as far away as possible.
It's a large part of her life, and so it seems pretty clear that for me to be involved in what's going on in her life, that a large part of my involvement would need to be with school.
She's just in my stuff. I don't know. I mean, there's stuff that I don't want her to know that she keeps finding out about.
I think with adolescents, they don't tell you anything. You know, you're always in the dark. You don't have any idea what's going on, and the less you know, the better, according to them.
I mean, you're not the ones that are in the back alleys watching your friends puke because they're so messed up. You know, I mean, you're not the ones that sit on street corners spanging for food because your parents have thrown you out. You're not the ones that see what goes on.
I go to everything. You know, I go to the open houses. I'm on advisory committees. I'm involved in this parent network group. My daughter doesn't love it, but I feel really connected.
I think that if they loved me, they would give me more of a chance to show them that I can be trusted. And the only reason why I break the trust is because they're not giving me enough freedom.
I think that kids need, at least my kid, needs to have a real clear message and needs to know what the boundaries are. And if you step outside of that boundary, there will be sort of swift repercussions for that.
I told my parents even that they make me feel like I am a really, really, really bad kid. And I'm not. I know I'm not.
While his parents tried desperately to find solutions, Jesse hit bottom.
Well, part of the problem is that I was having a lot of trouble perceiving him, and not just then, but then more than ever. It was just this difficulty in understanding what really the problem was.
There was a point where I was kind of suicidal, and I thought about it, and I felt really hopeless. I didn't think that anything could change, and that was a big reason why. And it was at the point where, you know, they call it hitting bottom.
We tried as hard as we could, but we didn't know what to do. Maybe there was nothing we could do. By the time things got out of control.
I was kind of looking, just as a way to express my anger, because I didn't know another way. I was looking for a fight. And then things escalate when you're dealing with gangs and drugs and stuff. And so I almost took that fight up to another level.
With her future at stake, Paula needed answers she couldn't find.
I get so frustrated, I would just start to cry. Didn't know what else to do. Or I'd punch things. That's how I can really release my stress. Is if I hit things. I'll hit walls, I'll hit the door, I'll hit cement, whatever.
I'm trying to get her interested again in school and get her motivated again, because I think a lot of that motivation was lost once she wasn't doing well.
Every day, I just get in class and I hated everything. I hated reading. I'd, want to sleep, or I'll just drift off into my own little world.
At the beginning of her sophomore year, she came home with so much frustration, and I really think she was at the point of dropping out of school or wanting to drop out of school. And then by the time she was a junior, she was almost screaming. I can't do it, Mom. You just don't understand. I don't get what they're talking about. I read it over and over again. I don't know what I'm reading.
James was already out of control when his best friend was killed in a drive-by shooting. James was devastated.
That's totally throws you off track, especially when this person, because one day he was there, I was talking on the phone, then the next day, we're expecting him to show up somewhere, and he's dead. Then we go to the hospital, and that's him right there on the thing.
It crushed him, it crumbled him, it absolutely broke him down to a wailing child. He cried for days.
I knew a lot of people that died like that, but never someone, that I was with all the time, and this one day he was gone, so it was like part of my life was missing.
He was so bad and running so hard that I prayed for something to bring him to his knees. And a pastor at our church told me, and we prayed and prayed and prayed, and he said, well, I don't think anything's going to happen to James. I don't think he's going to die, but something worse is going to happen.
2 months later, early one morning, high on drugs and alcohol after a party, James and a friend, Sterling, got into a dispute that led to murder.
We're out there, and he started talking about the same thing again, that I made him look stupid or something. He said, I'm gonna get you, kill you, take your stuff. Then he pulled out a knife and I ran and I grabbed this rebar, this piece of metal. Then it just happened right there in my living room.
When our kids most need it, and often least expect it, help can come from unpredictable and sometimes unexpected places. The difference is made by people like you and me when we return. To become involved or to involve your business in support of education, call this number. We'll send you a free Education in Action brochure that tells you how. Education gives us tools to ask questions, but the answers are often found in unexpected places. Paula found a solution in a nonprofit organization that finally diagnosed her problem.
Well, she found out she was dyslexic and had quite a few language difficulties as well, which is where dyslexia is centered in the language system.
Another door to learning, number one, of course, they diagnose a problem, and I will always be grateful for another door to doing that. But they also gave Paula some self-esteem that she had lost.
You know, there's so many people out there with learning disabilities that have this same exact problem. They have to read and read and read before they comprehend something. I'm not the only one.
What would be some descriptive words?
Well, the fact that I read a book in a month and a half, my mom and my dad were so amazed. They were so amazed. And that I could recite the whole book to them, basically, you know, sum it up in about a paragraph. I mean, they have never seen that before. Never.
Okay.
The cow.
Francis the cow.
I know that I'm confident in myself that I can go to college and know that I'll be okay.
But I really think that Paula will succeed in college.
What's made the difference in Letitia's life is growing up someplace few of us nowadays have ever been. A neighborhood where everyone knows each other and helps each other.
I guess my community made a difference because they're there. There's something solid that I can count on, for sure, no matter what.
What's his name?
Fudge.
Fudge.
If I didn't have a neighborhood full of people who cared about me, I probably wouldn't care either. It takes people caring for a child, a student, a kid, before they're gonna care.
This is quite a neighborhood we got here. Open door. We've got the open door policy in this neighborhood.
Totally.
Coming and going.
For Letitia, her family, and her neighborhood grew together to provide an unbeatable support network. Her community is perhaps an example of what we all need.
They accepted me. They told me, you know, they didn't tell me, but they showed me that I was okay. I was just fine the way that I am.
Responsibility, I don't think, has to take on some kind of utopian character. It can be just the best thing for us. We should do what we want. And if we want committed people, and if we want people to be responsible for more than their own selves, and to not be selfish in that shallow sense, then we need to demonstrate it and show how it can be in many, many different ways.
It's not just limited to mom and dad as far as adult role models go. There are all kinds of people there, all kinds of really, really different people. You know, there's somebody who can help me with math next door. You know, everybody's just right there. You got all kinds of people right there with you. And they're all for you.
Bridget is struggling to change the reputation of Lincoln. and her efforts are opening new opportunities for her and for her school.
And when she told me about her meeting the president, I couldn't believe it. I thought she was joking with me, you know.
Thank you to the Mayor of Tacoma, the Honorable Brian Ebersole, President Clinton, and Vice President Gore.
And the day she was up there on stage, you know, ain't no sense in me telling the story. I broke down and cried. I couldn't help it. It wasn't a cry of sadness, it was a cry of joy. You know, this is once in a lifetime.
Well, before I got to meet the President of the United States, and I got to talk to him and the community about, you know, giving Lincoln an unfair representation of all the kids around here who smoke dope, you know, do their little drugs and drink and everything like that. I asked them to forgive us for those kids.
Today is the first day of showing our community that the days of putting Lincoln down, which is the school I attend, are no more.
So it did mean a lot to me and the students of Lincoln High.
Her neighborhood is supportive. It's the rest of us who must respect the education she's working so hard to achieve.
It's time for us to get together and say, hey, we're not going to take this anymore. We're going to take a stand for the things that we believe in and for our children's education. You know, it's about time we started. No one else seems to want to do this. They all talk about it, but no one's actually showing interest in it. And I'm wondering why. After all of this time, after everyone has tried to go through with campaigns, have no one gotten involved? It's time. It's time to stop playing around and get to the point.
Stop bickering over what's going to happen or what should happen or how much money this school is spending, how much money that school is spending. Worry about a child's education. Money is an immaterial thing, you know? It's the education that counts.
So if everybody in the United States...
This is Lincoln, Lincoln High School.
I love Lincoln all the way. A lot of people have doubt about it, but I don't. I think we have a lot of potential, and I'm ready to use it.
James was in prison by the time his baby, James Jr., was born. His son will be his age by the time James gets out.
First of all, I probably wouldn't have been selling drugs and stuff like that if school was there, because, you know, I'd be like, I have something else to look for.
H thing, an M thing. Oh, it's called the elongate.
Well, you gotta look at it like this. If I was in school, maybe nobody would have got hurt.
James was lost because he was expelled from school when what he needed most was guidance.
So, you know, I feel bad that I'm not gonna be able to be with my son, you know, you know, that maybe when I get out, he'll be just as old as me when I got locked up.
Like with my son, I see a little boy. I know there's a little boy in there. I know there's a gentle child that cries and that has talents and has wants and has needs. I can see that, but I'm also can see the flip side where you can look at an innocent child and know what they're capable of.
In each of the persons where there was something good in the last generation, there's gonna be something good in this generation. Whether you're not gonna find it right then and there or you're gonna find it later, it's gonna be there because everybody's good for something. And, you know, like, there's so many kids in here right now that, you know, they can all still be helped. You know, it's never really too late.
And we've got to pay attention. And the schools have got to help as taxpayers. We're either going to pay for their school or we're going to pay for their jail time. One of the two.
Jesse's story demonstrates that even dedicated parents can't supply everything young people need to succeed. Raising successful young people also requires community.
You need other people there for you. You need older people, you need younger people, you need people. You need to be able to walk outside and know people.
You know, there are things that a parent can and should do for a kid, and the things that a parent can't and shouldn't do for a kid.
The community that Jesse finally found was a group of street youths who become their own support network to turn things around. Their organization, Peace for the Streets, by kids from the streets, has turned frustration into activism.
PSKS kids got off the street. They're making some concrete changes in their lives, and it's because they found a group that they can be unconditionally accepted in. And what they're able to do is then go back to the same kids that are still out there on the street and say, hey, you know, that you can do something. You can make changes.
Peace for the Streets by Kids from the Streets has changed my life dramatically, I think. I used to be very negative and violent, and I had a lot of problems in my life. I still have problems, but PSKS has just helped me get through them.
With PSKS, I feel that I can come to any one of our members at any time.
If I feel like I need to say something, I can say it without having everybody scream at me. I mean, yeah, the meetings we scream at each other, but we're all kids, come on.
It's like really changed my life in a lot of ways. I mean, I used to just do nothing. I didn't really care about anything. I just sit at home and be bored out of my mind, and now I'm really focused on something that I care about.
This is everything. It's absolutely everything to me.
And so if these people are the ones that society has given up on, well, they haven't given up on themselves.
Jesse's turned everything around tremendously, and we're very proud of how he's doing. He's a real success story.
The past is the past, and I've done what I've done, and I wish I could take it back, and I can't. And I have to accept what I've done, and now I can help other people, and I've learned from my mistakes. I remember when I was 16 or 17 and hanging out on the streets on the Ave, I'd look at the University of Washington, and I really tried to imagine myself in there, and it felt like there was this invisible ceiling I could never raise above the streets. I felt like I just, for some reason, it was so hard to even think about my future. I couldn't, it was an unbearable thought. Like 3 years later, when I started going to the University of Washington after I went through recovery, the first dorm I moved into was directly across the street from where I used to hang out. Yet, it was as far away from where I used to hang out as one could ever be.
Jesse asked me a few days back, Mom, are you surprised? You know, I'm getting written up in the paper and I'm on TV. Does this surprise you? And I said to him, no, it doesn't surprise me. I'm proud because you found something that you really care about, and you're doing it, and you're doing it to the best of your ability. And he said, I say you're a real mom. It's not for the cause. It's for me that you feel that way. So that made me feel real good.
I think she wouldn't admit as much that she appreciates the amount of involvement that I have in her life and her schoolwork and her activities.
Well, I appreciate the fact that she believes in me and most of what I do, you know. And I think that it's sad that some kids don't get that positive feedback from their parents. And it's really going to come out when they're adults, you know. They're probably going to grow up to be lawyers or something.
I see her school environment as sort of this little microcosm of life, of the world. You know, you go there and you interact with, you know, a wide variety of people. It's not just about academics. It's about everything. It's a whole little world.
Okay, so she basically said exactly what I was going to say. I mean, like, to the word. I appreciate the things about her that are a lot like me. And I know it's more that I'm like her because she was born first. I notice it all the time when I'm writing or talking to people or interacting with certain people. I act so much like her. It's so scary. I use the same words as her. I have the same tone of voice as her. Same hand gestures, everything. I mean, it's like you seriously are doomed to, like, be your parents. Do you guys want to come to the movie tonight?
I love her very much. And I'm very proud of her. I think that she's becoming quite an interesting young woman. I like her spirit. I like her enthusiasm. I like her creativity and individuality.
Well, of course I love her. I mean, she's my mom. I don't know if I necessarily exceedingly like her, but that's just the point in my life where I'm at. You know, I mean, eventually I'm going to come around again, but I don't know, I just appreciate that you know, you're there when I want you to, and you're there when I don't want you to. But when I do want you to be there, it's good to have someone to talk to.
Young people facing their greatest challenges growing up have a common thread of hope in education. Your role in making education the solution when we return. To help make a difference in the lives of young people in school now, call this number. We'll send you a free Education in Action brochure listing organizations and ways you can help. There's nothing more important or that affects our future more than the education of ourselves and our children. It's our right, our responsibility, and our own fate if we don't make the future better for all of us. For every young person you've seen in our show, there are thousands more in Washington with their own special challenges and needs. King 5 is doing its part, and we're asking you to do yours by getting involved in education and the lives of children around us. Because your help is what really makes the difference. Call your school district's volunteer coordinator. Find out how you can help out at school. Your business or company can help. In Seattle, call Pat Kyle at the Alliance for Education, 206-343-0449. For business support in other areas, call the Washington Association of Partners in Education at 206-252-5181. Read to your kids. Call your local school librarian and become a reading partner. Offer internships and job shadowing opportunities. Welcome students into your workplace. Become a classroom speaker. Even once or twice a year can make a difference. For more suggestions, call the Education in Action hotline for a free brochure. And when you see a young person, talk with them. Ask about school. Be encouraging. Be supportive. Thanks for putting education in action. To help put education in action, call this number, 206-448-4552.
I think that education should be on the top of everyone's list, no matter how young, how old, no matter what color you are, no matter what religion, anything. I think that education is the absolute most important thing in the world.
Funky, funky, bluesy, bluesy, ABC. Bluesy, bluesy, funky, funky, ABC. I'm talking about A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W,